As Iran war costs surge, Pentagon warns of growing funding strain. Pentagon war chest running low? Emergency funding push gains urgency as bills pile up. Iran war price tag explodes as Pentagon seeks another $80 billion from Congress. Midterm headache? Iran war bill collides with inflation fears and budget battles at home. The Pentagon reportedly told lawmakers it needs roughly $80 billion to cover costs linked to the Iran war as well as other military expenses, according to a Wall Street Journal report. Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg is said to have discussed the funding requirement during a series of calls with members of Congress. The Pentagon reportedly warned that several military services could face budget shortfalls as early as this summer without additional funding. According to the Wall Street Journal, a new wartime spending request could be submitted to Congress within the coming days. A Pentagon official told Reuters in April that the conflict with Iran had already cost the United States about $25 billion at that stage. The overall financial burden of the war has remained a subject of intense debate and disagreement on Capitol Hill, Reuters previously reported. An earlier proposal seeking around $200 billion in war-related funding reportedly encountered significant resistance from lawmakers. White House Budget Director Russell Vought said in April that the administration still did not have a final estimate for the total cost of the conflict. Vought made those remarks while defending President Donald Trump's proposed $1.5 trillion military budget before lawmakers. The funding debate comes as members of Congress face growing voter concerns over inflation and government spending ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. President Donald Trump has rejected claims that the Iran war exposed limits to America's ability to project power on the global stage. In an interview with the Axios show, Trump argued that the conflict ultimately demonstrated U.S. strength rather than weakness. Asked what the war taught him about the limits of his authority, the president responded with a blunt message: "There are no limits." Trump said he was not humbled by the conflict, even though the fighting ended with a memorandum of understanding rather than total victory. The president entered the war demanding Iran's unconditional surrender, but ultimately agreed to a more limited diplomatic framework aimed at ending hostilities. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I haven't learned that lesson yet. I know there are, but there are no limits. We defeated them totally militarily, and the MOU is probably unconditional surrender. Who else could have done a blockade like that? I did a naval blockade where not one ship was able to get through. Some tried. It didn't last very long. The only way I can get tougher is if I go in there for another 2 or 3 weeks and continue to bomb the hell out of them." Right. But what does that get us? The Strait of Hormuz will not be open. We wouldn't have oil for months. As long as you're dropping bombs, that thing is automatically closed. This is the kind of thing that could cause a worldwide depression. Unquote. Despite his tough rhetoric, President Trump acknowledged that continuing the war would have carried significant risks for the United States and the global economy. The president said the only way to become tougher would have been to extend the bombing campaign against Iran. Trump questioned what such a strategy would achieve beyond prolonging the conflict and increasing instability across the region. He warned that a longer war could have kept the Strait of Hormuz closed to commercial shipping for an extended period. According to Trump, as long as bombs were falling, normal maritime traffic through the strategic waterway would have remained impossible. Trump warned that a prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz could have severely disrupted global energy supplies and trade. The U.S. president said the world could have faced months without normal oil flows through the strategic waterway. Trump argued that the risk of a global economic depression was a major factor behind his decision-making during the conflict. Sources familiar with the president's thinking said he was increasingly concerned about declining global petroleum reserves and a potential oil shock.
We run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. You know, there are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out, and there'll be a time when you wouldn't be able to get it, and you want to see bedlam? So for all those so-called geniuses that want to show me how smart they are, ask them why didn't they blow up General Soleimani? Ask that of the general and a couple of other people that I like very much, but boy, are they wrong.
US President Donald Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian have formally signed the Memorandum of Understanding. The 14-point agreement is designed to end hostilities between the two countries and reopen the Strait of Hormuz to normal navigation. The memorandum establishes a 60-day ceasefire period during which both sides will pursue negotiations on a broader final agreement. Trump signed the document during a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris on June 18. Meanwhile, President Pezeshkian signed the memorandum in Iran, completing the process from Tehran's side. The agreement begins with a region-wide ceasefire, aiming to halt hostilities and lay the groundwork for a permanent end to the conflict. Both sides have pledged to respect each other's sovereignty and avoid interference in internal affairs, signaling a shift toward de-escalation. Washington and Tehran have set a 60-day deadline to negotiate a broader final agreement, with an option to extend talks if needed. The United States has agreed to begin lifting its naval blockade, while Iran will gradually restore normal shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has agreed to ensure free and safe passage for commercial vessels traveling between the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman for a limited period of 60 days. The memorandum outlines plans for a massive $300 billion economic development initiative aimed at supporting Iran's recovery. The United States has agreed in principle to discuss sanctions relief as part of a broader and mutually accepted final settlement. Iran has reaffirmed that it will not pursue nuclear weapons, while both sides work on a framework for managing enriched uranium. Until a final agreement is reached, Iran will maintain its current nuclear activities and the US will avoid new sanctions or military deployments. The agreement allows for sanctions waivers that could enable Iranian oil exports and related financial services to resume. Both sides will explore pathways toward financial normalization, including discussions on frozen assets and economic access. Once initial commitments are implemented, negotiations will expand to address all remaining issues required for a lasting settlement. Progress toward a final agreement will depend on both sides demonstrating compliance with ceasefire and maritime obligations. Any final agreement is expected to be submitted to the United Nations Security Council for international legal backing and enforcement.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.